Okay, let's jump right in. Today we're going to deconstruct a fascinating piece of 1930s propaganda. Now, this isn't just some dusty old document. Think of it more like a time capsule that gives us a window into the fears and the ideological wars of a world that was really on the edge. So what can one little pamphlet tell us about an entire era? And here it is. This is what we're looking at. It's a small pamphlet called The Anti-God Front of Bolshevism. It was published in London, and you can see its title and imagery were designed to get a reaction fast. This wasn't just a book. It was a weapon in a war of ideas. So what's the story behind this thing? Well, to really get what it's saying, you have to understand why it was made. And let me tell you, this was not written for a history class. This was meant to be an urgent alarm bell, one that was intended to be heard all around the world. It bills itself as a statement of facts. Very official sounding. Its author, a Reverend G.J. MacGillivray, was essentially answering a direct call from the Pope, who back in 1930 had spoken out against the horrible and sacrilegious crimes he saw happening in Soviet Russia. So right away, you know its goal isn't just to inform. No, it's designed to persuade you, maybe even scare you, and to rally people against this rising tide of communism that was making a lot of folks in the West very, very nervous. Okay, so let's get to the main event. What exactly is this anti-God front that the title is screaming about? And bam, this is the pamphlet's opening shot. It kicks things off with a quote from a Bolshevik leader, and that's a very deliberate choice. The message is crystal clear. This isn't some polite political disagreement. This is being framed as an all-out war between a radical new ideology and the very idea of faith itself. The author then digs into the why. According to the pamphlet, the Bolsheviks, the revolutionary communists who seized power in Russia, saw religion as the opium of the people. It was this thing that just distracted everybody from the real work of building a communist paradise right here on Earth. I mean, think about it. Religion often focuses on the individual's soul and salvation. But in the Soviet worldview, the individual only mattered as a part of the state. So right there, you have a fundamental head-on collision of ideas. So, if this was a war, how exactly did this anti-God front wage it? Well, according to the pamphlet, this wasn't random at all. It was a coordinated, deliberate, and systematic campaign. The author lays it out as this very clear three-pronged attack, almost like a military plan, designed to hit religion from every possible angle. You start with propaganda, then you use the law and money to strangle it, and you finish with outright violent persecution. Let's break each of those down. First up, propaganda. This was all about controlling the conversation. The pamphlet describes government-run newspapers with names like Atheist and Bezboynek, which literally means the godless. I mean, talk about being on the nose. It also talks about public lectures, movies, even street parades designed to mock holy figures. The whole point was to create an atmosphere where religious belief just seemed, well, backward and foolish. The second prong was using the law itself as a weapon, and this slide really shows you how they did it. All of a sudden, spreading anti-religious propaganda was totally legal, even encouraged. But trying to spread religious ideas, that became a crime. The pamphlet claims parents could even be imprisoned just for encouraging their kids to go to church. And the churches themselves lost all their independence, forced to register with the state, and then getting slammed with what the author calls exorbitant taxes designed to bankrupt them. And the effect of all this pressure? Well, it was dramatic. Look at this number, 1,200. That's the number of churches the pamphlet claims were shut down in the single year of 1929 alone. That number is there for one reason, to shock the reader. Now, of course, there were always official excuses. The pamphlet says the authorities would claim it was the demand of the workers, or that a church building was suddenly unsafe. But the author argues that was all just a smokescreen. The real goal was to seize the property and turn these places of worship into secular clubs, movie theaters, or warehouses. And that brings us to the third and most brutal part of the attack, direct, violent persecution. The pamphlet doesn't just speak in general terms. It uses statistics like this one to paint a very clear picture of a targeted campaign aimed right at the clergy. Now, while historians still debate the exact numbers from this period, you have to imagine that for a Western reader in the 1930s, claims like these were deeply resonant and absolutely terrifying. To make the horror feel real, the author includes these incredibly graphic, personal stories of torture and death. But there's a fascinating strategic detail in here. The pamphlet says the goal wasn't just to kill clergy, because that could backfire and create martyrs. The new goal was to create apostates. The aim was to break people, to force them to publicly renounce their faith. For propaganda, that was a much more powerful victory than just creating a dead body. Now, there's a particularly powerful part of this pamphlet that focuses on what it saw as the most sinister element of the whole campaign: the effort to capture the minds of the next generation. So the author asks this really critical question. If you want to eliminate an idea forever, you have to stop it from being passed down. And according to this document, the state's primary tool for doing that was the school system itself. The schools were transformed into instruments of the anti-religious front. This little anecdote from the pamphlet just perfectly illustrates the tactic. It's a simple story, but it's incredibly powerful. The lesson to the child is clear. Don't look to God for help. Your daily bread, it comes from the communist state. It's a direct replacement of faith in God with total dependence on the party. And here's the crucial point. This went way beyond just simple atheist teaching. This quote, which the pamphlet says came from a speech to a communist youth group, actively encourages children to see their own family's faith as the enemy. It's a direct attempt to drive a wedge right into the family unit, turning children against the most deeply held beliefs of their parents. Okay, so let's move to the pamphlet's conclusion. This is where all the pieces come together to build toward its ultimate purpose, which was to sound an alarm far, far beyond the borders of Russia. And this is the final, chilling warning. The author argues that what's happening in Russia isn't just a local problem. It's the first step in a global campaign. The goal, as it's stated right here, is nothing less than a world revolution, which, it says, means the end of all religion everywhere. To make this threat feel immediate and personal to someone reading this in London, the author uses this powerful metaphor of a spider's web. He says the Communist International, or Comintern, is spreading this web of agents all across Europe, getting ready to bring the same dictatorship of blood to the reader's own country. But the pamphlet doesn't end on a note of pure despair. It throws in a final section called Rays of Hope. The claim here is that all this brutal persecution was actually backfiring, that it was making people's faith stronger, creating a more resilient community of believers. But even with that little glimmer of hope, the pamphlet's main goal is crystal clear: to be a powerful, urgent call to action. So what do we take away from all this? When we look at a document like this, we know we're looking through a deliberately biased lens. It has a clear agenda. But by understanding that bias, by deconstructing its arguments and its purpose, we end up learning something much more valuable than just the facts it claims to present. We get a raw look into the fears, the perspectives, and the deep ideological battles of the time it was created. And that is the real power of exploring the past.